everybody. I'm Dr. Mike. I'm your resident weather forecaster or amateur weather forecaster. And I'll be your host for much of the Become an Amateur Weather Forecaster series in the New Mexico Science Fiesta. Today I have with me Doppler David Speelman from the StormTrack weather team at KVIA Channel 7 in El Paso. That's an ABC affiliate. Hello, Dave, or should I call you Doppler?
You know, it's up to you. People, I'd probably say most people just call me Doppler or Doppler Dave, and others just call me Dop for short. So it all depends.
Use Dop if that's okay with you.
But yeah, it's not doctor, although I do get some people that say doctor. I do not have my PhD, so we'll get that straight.
Yeah, I'm a doctor, you're not. And by the way,
Yeah.
Don't ask me to do medicine, folks. I'm a doctor of physics, not a physical doctor. So, well, Dave, in any case, can you first tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at KVIA?
Well, I do the weather. We call it the primetime weather, which means that I do it at night, which is the primetime schedule. So, and I've been doing weather at ABC7 now for 20 years, and I came from Amarillo, doing weather there for 3 years before I came here to El Paso. And so my day typically starts, you know, around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I get off at about 11. So my job is strictly weather. We have the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news. So that's my responsibility at night.
Just a follow-on question. Do you actually do the background for the forecast? Do you figure everything out? You are a meteorologist, correct?
Yeah, we what we do is when I get in there, we look at all the computer models and put together our own forecast. Now, certainly the National Weather Service puts out their forecast, and we do look at that every day as well. Sometimes we agree with the Weather Service, sometimes we do not. But we strictly do our own forecasting. We make our own graphics. Now, there's some big, you know, some of the large market stations, Chicago, New York, some of them have a weather producer, which means that they come in and they do all the forecasting and make all the graphics. And the chief weather meteorologist, weather guy that comes in there just kind of gets briefed of the weather, and then he does the performance end of things, the weather on TV. But most stations across the country, we have to be a graphic artist and, you know, put together our own forecast. So that's what we do on a daily basis.
By the way, I won't tell the National Weather Service you don't always use their stuff. But thank you for that. Well, I and the other folks that are with us today are interested in getting involved with weather forecasting in New Mexico in whatever way we can. Can you give us some tips as to how we might help you at KVIA?
Well, I mean, the biggest help is to be, as people always say, you know, boots on the ground. And that's getting to be so helpful these days. I mean, back in the day when I first started doing weather, I mean, you know, we didn't have the social media and all that. So people would just have to phone in and say, hey, you know, we're getting hail out here. You know, what size hail you getting this time? But nowadays we're getting pictures and video right when it happens, you know, many times live. So that's a big help when we have people that are out there tracking the storms and sending pictures of the storms. You know, this time of year, you know, as we put this video out, September and October, you know, this is kind of our secondary severe weather season here in the El Paso, Las Cruces area. So typically when we get some storms, as we have fronts coming through this time of year, you know, sometimes these storms can be severe, producing large hail and gusty winds. And, you know, sometimes if we ever have an opportunity to see a supercell or maybe it's some kind of tornadic weather, this is the time of year we get it. So when we get hail, I always tell people, if you can send us pictures and rainfall, all that stuff is very helpful to us, where we can show, because we're a medium of you know, pictures and video, and so we love to show that kind of stuff. So if folks, you know, especially if they're tracking storms that have hail, we always tell them, not only tell us roughly what size the hail is, but show us, you know, if you've got a hailstone in your hand, you pick up a hailstone, put it in your hand and put it next to some kind of coin If you think it's golf ball size hail, we'll put a golf ball next to it. Or, quarter size hail, that's when it becomes severe, that can do damage. Put a quarter next to it, or a dime or a penny. That way we can really see the size of it. So all of the folks out there can help us by sending pictures, and we get a lot of that. I mean, people have a nice sunset they send us. We try to throw that in there if we have time. But all that stuff is great if they want to share pictures with us and that type of thing.
And to do that, they can use any social media, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, if they want to do it, Facebook and email. If they want to email, it's always KVIA at KVIA.com. If they want a Twitter, if they're a Twitter fan, and that's mainly what I use, email, Twitter. It's at Doppler Daves, so Doppler, then Dave, plural, with an S at the end. They can send it to us that way, and we, we'll put it on the air if we can. Sometimes, if we don't have a whole lot of time in the weathercast, and I will say this, most of the time I typically get about 3 minutes for weather. But what a lot of people don't know is every day I have to fight for weather time, meaning we have a meeting in the morning and a meeting in the afternoon. At 1:45 is the meeting I attend. And that's all our staff. That's the reporters, the producers, the photographers, our news director, our general manager. We all have a meeting together, and I have to fight for my weather time. Every day it's different. If we're going to have a lot of severe weather, I have to do my best pitching for more time. So I'll have to pitch for 4 minutes. And sometimes that can be hard because, we have news, we have sports, we have weather, and sometimes it's a very heavy news day. There's a lot going on. And so producers go, we can't give you that much time, and I have to fight for it. So if it's a day where we don't have much going on weather-wise, it's just sunny and hot and no big changes, I might get 2 minutes for weather. So like I said, sometimes if we get a lot of pictures and video, I can't use it all because the time factor involved.
And I do remember a time when we had the floods back in 2006 where KVIA was pretty much wall-to-wall weather coverage and very little of the rest of the news. So once in a while, you guys do get the extra time.
Big weather events, certainly. Like if there happened to be, a big severe weather event, well, then they pretty much give me the time needed. And especially if there's one of those rare opportunities that we have a tornado warning, I'll go live and they'll let me go until the warning is lifted. And so it all depends on the situation. And the same with news. If there's a huge news event going on, we'll go live and we'll take as much time as needed to cover the event.
Well, thanks again. So I have one more question for you before you go, Dave. Mm-hmm. And that is, what is the scariest weather event you've ever experienced personally?
That was when I worked in Amarillo. And once I got to Amarillo, they month of May is their severe weather month when they see tornadoes, and they can get quite a few of them. And I remember this, I went to interview in Amarillo my first day, and that was in June. And so I flew in, they picked me up at the airport, and they said, well, our chief meteorologist is not going to be able to really spend any time with you because we're expecting a big tornadic event today. And so what happened was I got there, we went out to lunch with the news director who was, the main one that was going to hire me. Got to the station and it just blew up. I mean, it was just tornado after tornado out there. And I think we had probably, it was 7 tornadoes in the Texas Panhandle that day. And again, I'm just coming in to interview, and it was just crazy. They put me to work. In fact, I didn't even do any interview. I was helping them put together the forecast. And when I left, they all figured he's not coming here because it was just very crazy, and everybody was on edge and running around, and they said he's probably not going to take the job. But it was one of those things. We did have a tornado warning in Amarillo at the time I was doing weather, so everybody was freaking out. Now this was 25 years ago, That was before we had some of the technology and all that, and a lot of storm chasers, although we did have some. So that was probably, the scariest point in my life as far as doing weather, just because it was excitement and scary at the same time.
Yeah, tornadoes can be very scary.
Yeah.
I will, by the way, be showing a picture of a tornado that I saw up in Santa Fe just a couple of summers ago. So that will happen at our
Nice.
kickoff event, just for folks to know.
Yeah, those are exciting.
So we do get tornadoes here, folks. Once in a while, they actually do happen. So be aware of that. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. You can see more about what Dave does at KVIA if you check out his science destination called A Day in the Life of a Professional Forecaster. We may end up making that more of a live event, in which case it'll become part of the science and community. But he will also probably join us for some of the other science and community events. He's told me that. And so if you actually join us for those, you might be able to ask him some questions personally. So thanks again, Dave, and I'll see you all at the Fiesta.
All right, Dr. Mike.